Hey everyone, welcome back to my Blacadian podcast. I wanted to talk about tone policing. I spend a great deal of my time as a Black woman thinking about my tone. And I was really sort of irritated with myself because I realized I was sort of like tone policing myself. And I was like, what? So, let's talk about it. So, tone policing can happen in many different circumstances and situations. And, usually it's like around the power dynamics. So, someone with like privilege and you're like in a discussion with them and they make the argument and the focus about your tone, how you're speaking to them rather than about the issue itself, no matter what like points you're making, whatever the case may be. So they'll focus on that and they'll sort of be like, oh my goodness, I feel so, threatened or, offended by the way you're telling me what you're telling me. So that becomes the focus of the thing. And so obviously I'm talking about it in the context of racism and that dynamic. Um and so oftentimes when a Black person, and specifically I wanted to focus on Black women, are, discussing an issue and, they're trying to get a point across, oftentimes the focus becomes on their tone. And, people that can be passionate and for Black women, people will read it as aggressive or angry. And it's something that for me in the work that I do as an educator on racism and oppression, I am very, very conscious of my tone and how I deliver the information. And I think I remember I discussed, years ago, just talking with one of my coworkers and now friend, just about, we were doing our, anti-oppression work, and, uh, you know, he was just commenting on like, how I was so more patient than him, but just so careful about how I was putting my words together and sort of, editing our work. And I was like, oh yeah, well maybe we should, phrase it in this way. And he was like, wow, like he was just so impressed with how I was phrasing things, because I, was my focus was entirely about how people are going to receive this information when it's coming out of my mouth, because I know that the tone has to be um, such that you're going to have to be very hard pressed, and other people in the room will not agree with you if they say that I was coming off as overly aggressive, and these kinds of things. And I remember just thinking about that, how I um have to sort of tone police myself, or I have been doing that in these situations, because I am aware that even the smidgen of like passion coming from me will be interpreted as being aggressive, and then everything else will be lost and the focus will be on that. And so I sort of was having like a preventative measure um to sort of make sure that my tone was always very neutral and even though we're not talking about very neutral issues, these are issues that anybody should be passionate about. You should be speaking with passion about these issues. Yet I had to sort of come at it from this weird, unnatural position of, taking out the very human emotions that come along with discussing, anti-oppression discrimination work and, our histories. And so I would have to be sort of very, yeah, just neutral about it, where everyone else, when they're going through this, they can have such strong emotions and reactions to it, and sort of having to guide them through it. Of course, that's my, job as well, to sort of facilitate these conversations and go through it. But it was just one of those things that I noticed I was sort of self-correcting and policing myself to make sure that how things were framed were going to be received in a way, because of my identity, in a way that would be well received. And I was, as I've gotten more comfortable in my role, and in this work of anti-oppression work, I've realized that that's something that I have been experimenting with, dialing back a little bit. And so, just by addressing my identity up front, like, just coming out and saying, like, as a Black woman, these are some things, these are, like, I'm in my feels, and just sort of, owning that outright, and just sort of, and it's been, more well received than I thought, because, in my personal life, I'm a passionate person. I, I have reactions to things when I see, racism and oppression and, genocide and all these things happening in the world around me. I have very strong reactions to it, and as does everyone, and, how I express that and talk about that, the very last thing I should be worried about is my tone. And I think that that's something that I'm looking forward to sort of growing into. So that's not to say that it's never happened to me where, I've been extremely careful about how I was having conversations, and not just in, a professional setting, but in a personal setting, where I've been making some sort of point around racism, and someone, was very quick to point out that they felt very sort of offended and, attacked by something that I said. And, just knowing the person and the situation. So I was talking about, anti-Black racism, and this was, a person that, frankly, I know hasn't given racism or, the Black experience any kind of thought. And so, you know, uh, just for context going in there. And so, of course, this isn't my first day. So I was like, of course, very apologetic. And I say apologetic, but I did not apologize, because I'm not about to apologize for your tone policing. But, I just started asking questions. And it's something that I Um, Again, this was like a personal setting, not professional. I feel like professionally, I would have probably, um, well, tried to be a little kinder, but probably the same tactic. I don't think I could. I'm sorry. I'm saying, like, I can't even get it out now. I'm like choking on it. I don't think I could apologize. But I was just, asking questions, and it's something that I love doing. And you know, if you ever, as a Black woman, find yourself in this situation, take a breath and start asking questions. And so, it was basically about, I basically wanted to turn it back to the facts that I was making, the straight facts that I was just laying out there that they couldn't handle. And so I was just like, what exactly did I say? Do you want to focus on that a little bit more? Like, tell me exactly, how you were feeling about the what I was saying. And it just basically dissolved into them, you know, humming and hawing and tripping over the words because basically they couldn't pinpoint anything that I was saying. It was, they didn't want to say it's how you were saying it. They didn't want to, frankly, just admit that me just speaking as a Black person was just making them uncomfortable. And so, I was just like, well, I'm always, happy to chat with you and discuss it further. But, I was like, but those are things that did happen. So why don't you, sit with that? And, I think I, talked about, everyone's on this journey and sort of was just like, your baby steps. You need to take some baby steps. So I think uh, it's it's just the the reality of having this history, having this, present itself. It's just that whenever a Black woman, a person of, you know, racialized person is talking about racism and their experience, there's always going to be someone that thinks that they have the right to immediately feel offended by what they're saying simply because they are saying it. And the thing that really gets me is that the people that are going to be so worried about my tone will never worry about their own. Like, they can be as loud as they want to be. They can, be as aggressive as they want to be. They can swear as much as they want to. Even their body language, it will be super, super aggressive, and they'll never have to worry about, they'll just, really say that they really want to get their point across. And that's the thing that really um, bugs, if you would. And so, when I have to be so conscious of my tone and that someone can just um, have that freedom of thought, that not even have to put that into the equation of having to how they're going to express themselves, is just one of the many frustrating consequences of racism, and specifically anti-Black racism. So let me know if you guys have been ever, someone has, sort of corrected your tone specifically as a Black woman, just sort of, when you were doing your best to work at trying to be calm and, getting your point across, but then someone just completely misread you as being aggressive and you knew that it was entirely due to race, let me know how you dealt with that situation and, how you reacted because, going forward, as I said, no, I am not going to watch my tone. I said what I said, and I said it how I said it. That's going to be um, my new policy. So I'll let you know how that works out. I'll let you know how that works out for me. As always, thank you so much for listening. It's um, always a pleasure to talk these things out. So I will talk to you next time.